Hello there. I'm going to run you through a quick program that will allow you to create a database and add it to a Visual Studio project in C Sharp. I've already set up the program here, and I'm going to begin by adding a database to the default C Sharp program. So over on the right hand side, I'm going to right click on the My Database sample program, and there I'll get a drop down menu that will tell me give me a list of options, and I'm going to add a new item. And the new item I'm going to add will be a database. So we're going to add a database item. The default is to allow you to add a class, but I'm going to scroll down until I see a local database. When we click here, we can see that on the right hand side it tells us it is an empty SQL Server Compact Edition database. I'm going to name this database my database, and you can see the extension is SDF. That is the extension that they use. All right, let's click add. It's going to bring us to this configuration wizard. We are actually going to skip this. If we wanted to connect this to an existing database, or if the database had data somewhere, we could try to bring it in through this. I'm just going to click cancel, and we will do that manually. So to do that manually, we'll double click on the database, and on the right hand side, we'll get the Database Explorer. Under the Database Explorer, we can see a little icon for tables, and there's an arrow next to it. When we click on the arrow, it goes away because we do not have a table. So let's add a table. So we right click on it, and we create table. I'm going to name this table people because it will be a list of people. The first column will be person ID, and I'm going to use this as a unique ID, a unique identifier for the table. So I can right click on here, I'm going to make it an integer, and this will be a special integer number to identify it. It is not allowed to be null. There has to be an ID for it. It has to be unique, and it will be our primary key. It will be the key that our database uses to identify things in the table. Now, I don't want to have to worry about this, so in Visual Studio, they can automatically increment this identity for us. And we can do that by going to the bottom half where it says identity. We read that says, it's basically asking, will unique numeric values be automatically inserted in each row of this column? Yes, that's exactly what I want. So from the drop-down menu, we can select true. And the identity increment will be 1, so this will go up by 1 every time, and the identity seed will be 1. So it's going to start at 1, and it's going to increment by 1. If you have employee ID numbers that start at 1,000 or something like that, you could start at 1,000. For the person ID, I just care about first name and last name. And we will go for the default. This NVAR car is a kind of text array. If you want to change the data type, you're more than welcome to select from any of the types that are given here. But we are just going to keep it with the NVAR car. All right, because this is what we want, I'm going to select OK. And what it will do is it will create the database. Currently, there is no data in the database. So when we right click on people, we can show the data table, and we can see that it's null, null, null. That means nothing in our computer speak. So I'm going to start out by putting in the name of some presidents. I'm going to start with George Washington. And how about Abe Lincoln? And you can see when I hit enter, it automatically inserts the person ID for me. I'm going to start this table with just 2 pieces of data in it. It's automatically saving, so I don't need to worry about it. So we can close this out for now. And we have a database. There's data in the database. And usually after I put the data in the database, I save everything. The reason we need to save things is so that there will be a copy of the database saved in the same location as the executable. If we don't have a copy of the database there, when the program runs, it'll look for it. It won't be there, and it will just use an empty database. All right, we are going to go the default location for saving because I've already set it up. If you needed to change it, you can browse the directory as needed. All right, it'll take just a moment. And we've now saved it. So we've created the database. The database is in our solution, but it is not currently connected to our form or our solution. So we now need to create the connection. To do that, we have to go up to data, and we're going to add a new data source. If we go to show data sources, it'll bring up a window showing us our data sources. There are no data sources here. So let's go to data, add new data source. We're going to add a database. We're going to add a data set. So far we're going with the default values. We only have one database to choose from, which is my database. So that's one we're going to create now. The connection will be saved as this. That looks just fine. And now we can choose what parts of the database we want to add. I'm just going to expand these so you can see. We can add everything, or we can choose not to add one element. This is exactly what I want, so I'm going to add it. The dataset name I am happy with. Alright, so we will finish our data connection. And at this time, Visual Studio is automatically going to generate all the code we need to connect our database to our program. And we can also see now under data sources, we have my DB dataset and people. So we have a people table now. We can either put a grid view in or a detail view. I'm going to use a detail view because we can actually use it to add data. And this will help explain a little bit. So to add the data to the table, we're going to click on our detail view, the details, and drag over our form. When we drop it, it's going to put our data in the table. We can now kind of position it the way we want. I don't care about displaying the person ID, so I'm going to highlight this and delete it. Also, I found when I'm looking at it and adding to it, it'll show a default value of -1, which is actually going to change when we save things. It confuses me, so I'm going to delete it. Now here we're not actually deleting the data from the table, we're just deleting the visual element. Alright, at this point we should be able to save our program and run it. And when we run it, we should see a database that has George Washington and Abe Lincoln in it. Alright, so we have our form here, form 1. We're viewing entry 1 of 2, right? Entry 1 was George Washington and entry 2 was Abe Lincoln. Now what I like about this particular thing is we can actually add data to the database if we want. We can click on add new, and I can add Bill Clinton, and when I click on save, this will be added to the database. I can then come in here and I can add the last president of George Bush. Sorry, no I. Add, and now we have a database with 4 presidents in it. Now this is not just in the memory. We can actually shut the program down, quit the program, the memory is being freed. And when we run our program next time, we can see we are now looking at 1 of 4. There aren't 2 in here anymore. There's George Washington, Abe Lincoln, and it's remembering Bill Clinton and George Bush because we added those, and it's saving those to the database file that we had before. I do want to give a word of caution. If we go into our database Explorer, and if we want to edit our database, if I wanted to add more people to this, and we go to our show data table, you can see there's only 2 here. So if I add the new president, Barack Obama, save it and run it, we're going to see when we build this new database, we are now looking at 1 of 3. It overwrote the database that we had before and replaced it with the new database that we had here. So I like to warn people, when you're designing a program, you have to be careful when you are giving people access to a database. Do you want the user to edit it, or is it only there for the programmer to edit? If you don't want people adding new things to the database, you can actually delete elements from the form. So we can come up here and we can delete these. Alright, and with those deleted, we'll just save it and run it quickly. And we can now see, once it pops up, we can now see that we have a database. We can go through it, but we no longer have the edit options. So you just want to be a little clear about whether or not you want the users to edit it or the programmers to edit it. And be very careful if you have them both doing it, because if the programmer makes a change, it's going to destroy all the changes that the user did. All right, I hope this has been clear and helpful for you, and I'm going to end my video now. Thank you.